Are you winning? Do you need help in your life or business? Could you use some inspiration, business strategies, and success principles? I'm Daniel Gomez, award-winning business coach, keynote speaker, and best-selling author. On the Daniel Gomez Inspire Show, we will help you create a successful life and elevate your business. Together, we will discover the keys that unlock your success and dreams. Welcome back to another episode of the Daniel Gomez Inspire Show, where we inspire you, we motivate you, and man, today we're going to educate you. If you're stuck in business, if you're stuck in life, as a matter of fact, this amazing guest today, he has a book called Unstuck. So if you're stuck, you need to be here. And I'm honored to introduce my special guest today. Welcome to the Daniel Gomez Inspire Show, Mr. Phil Duke. What's going on, my man?
Man, I appreciate it, man. That's a good intro. I'm gonna have to live up to that. So hopefully we can do it today. So
Hey, man. Well, I know you're great people. Just been able to spend a lot of time with you, and I know the beautiful person you are, Phil. Do me a favor, introduce yourself to the Daniel Gomez Inspire Show, please.
yeah, man. So I'm Phil Duke Jr. If you haven't picked up on it by now, I'm from the South. I'm from a little town called Northport, Alabama. But got to meet Daniel a while back, and I've had a blast with him. It's been a couple months now, I guess. Nowadays, it seems like it was just the other day that we ran into each other in Nashville. And yeah, man. So, I'm an entrepreneur. I'm a business coach. I'm an author now. So, it's been a fun journey so far. I'm only 37 years old. So hopefully this is just getting started. And hopefully we can give some value and some knowledge to the folks that are listening or watching today.
Phil, why you gotta make me feel old, man? I'm only 37 years old. Like, my new nickname this year? 5-0.
Oh man, you're doing good for 5-0, man.
5-0, man. I'm 5-0. So that's everybody, ladies and gentlemen. That's 5-0. But on a serious note, ladies and gentlemen, you know what I say here at the Daniel Gomez Inspire Show? Get out your pen, get out your paper, because you definitely want to take some massive notes today, because we've been blessed to spend some time with Phil Duke, and just the business savvy, the wisdom that he has. It's like, for being 37, he's just over the top because he's lived it. There's so many people out there that we see Phil on Instagram, on just social media, posting this and that, and they have nothing. They're a life coach and they're only 12. How do you figure? They're a business coach and they're only 3 years old. Have you seen those?
I have, man. Yeah, or business coaches that have never had a business. They had a high paying job and they got burnt out, so they decided to be a business coach. And you got to be careful who you take advice from, right? So
yes.
Yeah.
Well, true fun fact, as a matter of fact, ladies and gentlemen, on a serious note, get out your pen, get out your papers. You know what we say? When you write down your information, you retain over 50% of it. And I want you to go back and watch this episode, not once, not twice, but really study this episode, because we're going to drop some massive, massive wisdom today. Well, Phil is, and I'm just going to kind of prop it out of him, and that way we can get some massive value. So take some notes, because I want you to retain what we're going to talk about today. And, the true fun fact, Phil, before we get started here on this interview, is the fact that, did you realize that most professors in colleges, including Harvard and Stanford, have never had a business that hit $100,000 in revenue?
Mm-hmm.
And they're teaching business.
Yeah. And the vast majority of businesses out there have never hit $1 million. It's very, very, very small percentage. So yeah, I remember when I worked at the Chapter 13 bankruptcy office, I remember seeing one of my college professors coming in to make their bankruptcy payment, and they didn't see me that day. I worked there as like a clerk when I was in college, and yeah, listen, everybody goes through different cycles, but yeah, you can only learn so much in a textbook. You can only learn so much by even reading my book, but having a coach and a mentor is a massive, massive cheat code in life. So hopefully we can drop some knowledge for folks today to open up their eyes, open up their minds to the possibility that they could be so much more than what they currently are. So
I know what we're going to use, the accent of Alabama. We're going to use from a small town hardware store to multimillionaire Phil Duke. So what qualifies him? He started off at a hardware store. Just in a conversation we had, he told me a story, and there was a lid what he wanted to do and what he could do and what his potential was. But how many of us listening to this episode, you're stuck in that hardware store, you're stuck being a waiter, you're stuck being a 9 to 5er, and nothing wrong with 9 to 5ers, right? But I'm saying this because God's put a bigger dream in your heart. My wife has a career. She doesn't want nothing to do with Daniel Gomez in the business because she loves what she does, and it's okay because she's growing. But there's many of you that are stuck, and today we're going to get you unstuck. Phil Duke's story from small town hardware store to multi-millionaire real estate investment. That's what qualifies him. So let's take a backstory. Phil, what made you like want to even be a business owner? What caused you? Why didn't you want to stay at that hardware store that you started off when you were younger?
Yeah, man. I mean, for all these years, I was chasing this idea of freedom. And I think that's what a lot of people are trying to chase. And unfortunately, for the first few years that I was on that chase, I actually, outside of, having more success financially, I was, more stuck than I had ever been. Because at least when I was, working for the mom and pop store, I could, I could leave work and I could go do my hobbies. I could enjoy the time with the family. Like there was a separation of work and life. And unfortunately, I was in a few short years became, top producing agent in my town. Everybody was telling me how good I was doing, jumped in the real estate business, and had a lot of success pretty early on. Within a couple of years, kind of rose to the top. Everybody was telling me how good I was doing. Man, you're crushing it. Things are going good. And on the inside, man, I was feeling more stuck than I had ever been because my phone rang all the time. I was like held captive by my phone. I remember, not being able to sit at the dinner table with my family without trying to work real estate deals. I remember driving to the beach on a beach trip, and on the way down there, I think it was like 26 or 27 phone calls on the drive to the beach. And so, I had gone out and had done what everybody says to do when it comes to creating success and, waking up early and having my time for myself in the morning to exercise and get my thoughts together, prospecting, lead generating, having a dialed in presentation when I went out on appointments, really being an expert at my job. But I found myself stuck in that. So
let me ask you this:
up,
when someone's stuck,
Mhm.
because I want people to hear this, and I want you to. I know your heart. Were you happy?
It was, I was happy when it was first getting started, but there came a point in that journey where I said, you know what, is this really what I want my life to look like for the next 10, 20, 30 years? I looked around at the people in my industry that I looked up to, and I thought, do I still want to be doing what they're doing 10 years from now, 20 years from now, 30 years from now? And it was the realization that I didn't really have a business. I had a job. So I called myself an entrepreneur. I read books about being a business owner, but really I was just a very efficient, very skilled, person that had a job. I didn't have a business because if I stopped doing what made Phil Duke successful, then I would feel it and my production would go down. I couldn't really take breaks for an extended period of time. I was kind of burnt out. And I'm glad that I realized that early on, because I feel like so many people end up, becoming, successful, and they enjoy, the benefits that come with that, because there are some benefits that come with it. And they end up just kind of really not living a life on purpose, not really living a life, where they're designing their own destiny. They've just said, you know what, if this is what it takes to be successful, this is just what I'm going to do, and I'm just going to have to live with it. And I'm here to tell you there are other levels you can go to. And that's what the book was really all about, was this idea that most business owners don't really own businesses. They own jobs, because if they stop showing up to those jobs, those businesses don't last very long, right?
Yeah,
So,
I love what we're talking about. So, ladies and gentlemen, think about what Phil's talking about. Are you stuck to where you're not happy? Are you trying to be happy, but you're a solopreneur and you having problems delegating out, right? Maybe you're a business owner with a scarcity mindset. You don't have the millionaire mind, and you're trying to do everything. You're trying to do the accounting, you're trying to do your social media, you're trying to do this, and you're saying, Daniel, I can't afford it. Well, the more you say you can't afford it, you're never gonna afford it. And listen to what Phil's saying. He had to push through these things to expand his thinking, to expand himself as a business owner. And think about this. Ask yourself this question. Am I stuck right now in my business? Be honest with yourself. Are you stuck right now in your business? Because maybe you need a coach, maybe you need a mentor, maybe you need guidance, but that you're trying to figure it out. But the thing is this, you don't know what you don't know. So be honest with yourself and write that question down right now. Am I stuck in my business because I'm trying to figure it out? And the truth is, you just don't feel like I had to hire a business coach and guidance, but I love this story you tell. And ladies and gentlemen, this is going to paint a perfect example of what Phil's trying to talk to us about. Because maybe you're like, I get it, but so I like the story you talk about the surgeon, right? The doctor. Like, tell us about the surgeon story that you've talked about before to me. And I think they need to hear that because sometimes we see doctors, right? And because in school, everybody says, you want to be a doctor, you want to be a lawyer. If not, you're a failure. And that's not true. That's just what society wants you to believe. But talk to us, tell us the surgeon story, if you don't mind, the doctor story.
yeah, man. So I mean, brain surgeons are highly skilled. I mean, I couldn't do what they do. They had to go to school for a long time to learn how to do it. They had to work under somebody's in like a residency to learn how to do it. And they make great money as long as they keep showing up to the operating room. But what if they get sick? What if they pass away? What if they just want to retire? They get burnt out. What if they want to, you know, shift directions in their career? The minute they stop showing up and doing those operations, and I know they also make money from doing the consultations. They come in, you meet with the surgeon, and they do some scans, and then they get you scheduled for surgery, right? So like that's part of it. But the minute that guy or girl stops showing up and doing those things, their business takes a big hit because it's built around them being in the operating room, bringing in revenue for the business. And so they might have a business license. Their name might be on the building. They might have business insurance, but that brain surgeon really doesn't have a business. A business is something that runs and operates and grows without you. They don't have that. They have a high paid job, very highly paid.
Say that again. A
Very
business is
skilled.
what? Say that again. I need to hear that again. Write this down, ladies and gentlemen. What is a business?
Yeah, a business is something that can run and operate and grow without you. Something that provides monthly cash flow to you without you even having to show up. So think about the guys on Shark Tank, right? The sharks. They're saying stuff like, I'll give you $250,000 in exchange for 30% equity in your business. They're not signing themselves up for more work. They're not signing themselves up to be the opener or the closer of that business. They're not signing up to do sales or marketing. They're simply leveraging their knowledge, skills, and abilities and their networks to grow these companies without signing themselves up for more work. And because they're doing that, they could do 10 of those investments this month. And not all of them are going to work out, right? I mean, that's part of being, that's a whole other discussion for another day. Being a venture capitalist, it's not, there's a lot of risk involved in that kind of industry. But, it's just been intriguing to me that some brain surgeons end up being stuck as the brain surgeon for life. And then some end up becoming hospital owners.
Mm.
And that hospital is cranking out surgeries all day, all night, without that brain surgeon who's now the owner of the hospital, without him having to be in the operating room.
So let me ask you this. What was for you? This is a great topic because I think so many people get stuck in the business, and that's something that I've been working on this past 5, 6 months myself, right? Really building director of operations. We have our products, we have our services, and really training people to be like, one day you're going to do a boot camp. I don't want to do the boot camp. You're going to do it, right? Like it's a proven way to do it, right? You just duplicate yourself. What are two things that you can give the audience, Phil, that you really had to grow through and mature through, just to really to shift your thinking from the old way of thinking from an employee to that solopreneur, to really say, no, I don't want to, I want to run the business from not when it's let it run by itself. What are two things that you can pour into us today?
Yeah, I would say two big things. Number one was I found somebody who had done exactly what I wanted to do, and I started coaching and training with that person, and they actually have become one of my best friends. Was actually on the phone with them for a little while, talking through some business stuff before we got on and recorded this podcast. So I think working with somebody who had already done those things allowed me to see myself and my business way differently than I ever had before. Every coach or trainer or mentor up until then had taught me how to sell more, how to make more money, how to sell more houses, but nobody had really showed me how to actually build a business. And so, luckily for me, I found that kind of mentor, and it totally changed the game for me. I would say that would be number one. And then number two, I was thinking so incredibly small about my business. Like, I wanted to be the number one real estate brokerage in Tuscaloosa, Alabama, a little small town. University of Alabama's here. There's some industry here. It's a great small town, but it's one little bitty small town. And I had fought for years and years and years of how do I make my company number one here in this one little small area. And I realized I don't necessarily have to take over this one market. I can expand to a bunch of cities, bunch of states. And, we're selling more houses now than just about anybody in our area, but we're not selling them all in our area. So I was
Yeah.
able to pick up an office here, and I was able to open up an office here and open up an office here. And I didn't have that kind of model or structure anywhere in my mind at all when I first started the process. I was thinking so small. I was thinking one town, one office, one business. And now that I've been able to expand from that, I mean, we're making money all kind of different ways. I mean, we're partners with a real estate school. I've opened up a title company where we close deals at. I've been part owner of a mortgage company. So it opened up my horizons to a much, much bigger picture out there. And I would say those are two things that I think were the ultimate cheat codes: was having a coach or a mentor who had done exactly what I wanted to do. Up until then, I really looked up to, and I still respect the guys that, share their 3 a.m. alarm times on social media, getting up at 3 a.m., in the gym at 3:30. They're going to work 16, 18 hours a day. I used to really, really respect and looked up to those people. And then I thought to myself, like, is that really what I want my life to look like?
Yeah.
Or would I rather be able to stay up and watch Netflix with my wife tonight? Would I rather be able to play video games with my kids? Like, I took my kids to school this morning, and I'm picking them up today, and we're going to play video games when they get home from school. Like, no homework allowed for the first hour they're home.
So let me ask you this.
Yeah.
For you, what was the biggest shift in your thinking, right? Like if there was one mind hack that really like helped you, what would it be? You talked to the mentor, you that helped you out, but what was the mind hack that we were like, uh-huh. And because you got it right, because it's one thing to, like we're talking about, the professors can teach it all day, right? But they're
Yeah.
not doing it, because there's gonna come a point of, right, reality meets the road, and most people don't push it to the other side. What was that pivotal moment where you like, you had to be more resilient, and then that your mind just kind of shifted? What talk to us about that, if you don't mind.
Yeah. Well, I think there's a little bit of, it's a little bit scary to totally remove yourself from your business day to day. Like I was top producer in my area, you know, my name's Phil Duke. So like I used to have billboards that said Duke of Northport, which is our town here in Northport. I was scared that if I stopped promoting myself in that way, that everything would just come to a screeching halt. And so I thought initially, like, let me take a 2 or 3 year period and slowly, gradually start pulling back from my business. And I just kind of slowly inch away. And I realized that that Band-Aid was going to hurt whether I ripped it off fast or slow. So when I see which way I want to go now, I'm like, let's rip this Band-Aid off and let's just go as fast as we can. So when I really got serious about growing my business, because up until then I was running the brokerage and I was the top producer in the brokerage. I was the one that was the recruiting and training all the agents. I was the one handling all the books, running to Office Depot to get office supplies. When I decided I'm really going to grow a business, I had to just rip that Band-Aid quick. So I went from November of 2019, I sold 11 houses myself that month, made almost $100,000 that month selling real estate. 3 months later, I was not selling real estate anymore because I
Wow.
had agents that could sell real estate. They had real estate licenses. That's what they did. And so for me, it was just having that clarity. And I would say clarity is like it's been the number one of the biggest themes for me. Like when I know which way I'm going to go, it might take me a while to figure out which way I'm going to go, Daniel. But once I know which way I'm going to go, and I've got a model that's been proven, you know, a step by step, this is what I need to do. These are my next 5 moves. Then I
Yeah.
just go
So
for it.
what did you do, right? Because you're the top producer, you're the man, right? Phil Duke of North. I like that. Duke of Northport. You're the Duke of Northport. You're raking in the dough, right? And
That's right.
but there has to be a transition of you're producing $100,000 in revenue, we'll just say for yourself. But
Mhm.
as you make the transition in those 2 to 3 months, there has to be a little dip. When that dip came, when the revenue wasn't what it was, and then you kind of pass the baton to a multi team that you have, right? What
Mhm.
what how was that experience? Because I think that's where the growth happens. Think about what I'm saying, ladies and gentlemen. Right? Phil Duke is producing $100,000 of revenue, just giving you a point of
That was
reference.
1 month. Yeah.
1 month.
Yeah.
1 month, 100,000, and then he passes off the baton. He makes a decision to give it to 2 or 3 or 4 other real estate agents that are on his team and committed to this. But there has to be a dip. There has to be a dip where there was a dip in from 100,000 to whether it's 80, 60, whatever it was. But how did, when you went through that, like, what's going on? Because I know, like, we're human. You're like, man,
Mhm.
did the thoughts come in? Crap, did I make the right decision? Or,
Yeah.
honey, guess what? I know I was going to buy you this, but we're going to have to hold off on that furniture, whatever, because it had to have happened. Talk to us about that moment in the dip.
Yeah, man. I mean, so for me, and for anybody out there that's you know maybe at that pivotal moment of your career where you're thinking you might need to do the same. I was still involved in marketing. I was still involved. Like the billboards didn't just stop. The Facebook ads just didn't stop. I just no longer went on the appointments and I no longer worked with the buyers and the sellers anymore. So I was still generating a lot of business, but instead of Phil going out and doing the appointment and talking to that person every single week, every single day until we closed the deal, I took an agent that I already had and I put them on that deal. And they would get 40% of the commission and I would get 60%. So I didn't go from 100,000 to zero. And what would happen though was because I was no longer out there in the field showing 12 houses in a day, giving a seller an update on what the people from yesterday said about the house, going to a closing, because I was not involved anymore from a time standpoint. I saved so much time that I just went out and started recruiting more agents and I started coaching and training them. Proven method, you know, 30-day action plan is what I coach all of our agents on. We're still using it today. I felt like if I can get more agents in the door, coach and train them up on this 30-day action plan in the next 30, 60, 90 days, we're going to have new money coming in that we wouldn't have had. And eventually that starts to really, really take off. But I would say also, Daniel, unfortunately, you know, I've talked with a lot of people in real estate the last few years that wanted to do this, but they were not in a financial position where they could afford to go back even a little bit. So part of the way I live my life, like I drive a 5-year-old used Ford F-150. I live in a house that it's the nicest house I've ever lived in.
Yeah.
But compared to some people that work for me and compared to some other people that do what I do for a living in my town, they live in much bigger and much nicer houses than me. So I think living below your means is always a smart way, no matter if the economy is good or bad, right?
No,
And so I think
I
because,
agree with you on that 100%. Listen to what he just
yeah,
said. Say that again. I want you to say that again because that's powerful.
yeah, I mean, you know, living below your means is a smart move, whether the economy is good or bad. And so many people out there that I talk to, man, they want to build a business, but they're so used to having those big months from them personally being out in the field producing or bringing in revenue, they can't afford 6 months of going backwards slightly. And I've had several times in my career where I had to make those big moves where I was like, you know what, the next 6 months, I might go back a little bit in income. I might not keep going up. I might go backwards, but because I'm going backwards and I'm going to kind of rebuild this thing and make it bigger and make it scale bigger, in 6 months to a year from now, I'm going to be making a lot more money than I would have done if I'd have just been stuck doing my same thing over and over and over. Because I'm building a business that no longer relies on me being out there in the field, showing houses and working with sellers and negotiating contracts. I'm building the business. And because it doesn't take up any of my time, this thing is going to be way bigger and way more profitable and way more scalable than it ever would have been if it would have been just me in the field.
Are you an aspiring speaker? Do you have a book that you've been wanting to write for months, maybe even years? Or are you an aspiring podcaster? You want to start that podcast like the Daniel Gomez Inspire Show and don't know where to start? Well, at Daniel Gomez Enterprises, we can help you do all three. We can help you become that paid speaker, share your story to the world, write your book, and get your podcast launched and help you produce it. We'd love to help you. Give us a call at 210-663-5954. That's 210-663-5954. We can help you become that paid speaker, write that book, and launch your podcast. We'd love to hear from you. Give us a call now. I love what we're talking about because I really need to hear about this. You know, those business owners out there, those entrepreneurs. Me and my son just had this talk. We went and had lunch yesterday, and I don't know. He out of the blue, he goes, "Dad, why did you buy a Nissan Altima?" And I was like, where did that come from? We were just talking about cars because he bought a new truck, and I just got my wife a new car also, and we were just there. And so, what are you talking about? He goes, "Yeah, like when you started your business, why'd you buy an Altima? Like out of all cars." So the backstory to that was 2 years prior to that, I had my truck paid off. I had my Corvette. I had bought not a Corvette. I had bought the new body style 2SS. It was like 2016 Super Sport Camaro. Like this thing was a beast. But when my wife was diagnosed with breast cancer a year later in 2016, in 2017, I was like, well, if I'm going to do this business thing, I got to be smart. And I sold my truck. I sold my Camaro because it wasn't paid off. And I said, well, I don't really want to pay this off because it wouldn't be wise, right? I'm thinking long term. My wife's diagnosed with breast cancer. What am I going to do? So I said, well, if I'm going to start this business, I need to I need to drive something every day because I'm going to be driving, training, whatever. But my point is this, is that I got rid of my truck and I got rid of my Camaro. That was my sacrifice to myself because now I was driving this Nissan I got, and I knew what Nissan Altima's got because I used to have one with the old dealership I used to work at. They gave me a demo. So I would drive 32 miles a gallon. So I'm driving this Nissan Altima my first year in business, and then I get this big contract with Ford. So then I buy this other car that I really don't like it. It's a Fusion, but it's like I'm telling my dealer, hey, I'm buying this car because you're giving me the opportunity. I'm going to support you back in what way I can. So I have this white Fusion, and I'm like, do I like it? No, but it's just a car. And people would say, man, like, dude, like, why did you
You
leave the
went
car
backwards,
business?
Daniel. Yeah, you went
Yeah,
backwards. Yeah.
you went backwards. Exactly. But what they didn't see was I had a little bit of a nest egg because I always lived below my means. Exactly what you're saying. I wasn't. I call this in Texas. We call this in Texas. I don't know they call this in Alabama. We call it house poor, right? You got the biggest house on the block, but you're house poor because you can't afford anything else. And a
Yeah.
lot of people did that in 2006, 2007 in the car business. And then when 2008, when everything popped, many of my friends that had bought these beautiful homes, they were out of luck and mine was paid off. Right. And I don't say that bragging, but it's just, I could have, but to start my business, Phil, that's what I did. It was the fact that I was living below my means. And
Mhm.
the time came where our business was growing. And then I said, well, if I'm going to be this high level business coach, executive coach, if I pull up in a Ford Taurus, I mean, in a Ford Fusion, is Phil going to hire me? Probably not. So I really prayed about it. I said, God, look, like, talk to me. So I bought a Porsche. First time I bought a nice, like, coming out. It'd been a couple, it wasn't right away. It was several years. But if I'm going to
Mhm.
drive to the country club and I want to, and if I want to attract that high end client, I need to speak their language, right? I need to be in their radar. But it took me really, we just completed 6 years in business. It took me like 4 years to get to that point, and people don't see that, Phil.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, you might have to go backwards a little bit before you go forward again, right? So you've got a chance to rebuild things, but so many people are not willing to go through that 6 months or a year or 2 or 3 years. And so one of my character flaws, I mean, it served me well in some areas, but when I know which way I'm going to go, man, I just go all in. And so, yeah, I was the same way, man. When I never had a nice vehicle, ever in my life. And I started having success as a real estate agent. Man, I went down to the Toyota dealership, 4-door, 4-wheel drive, brand new truck. And a year later, I was like, this is dumb. This thing didn't actually make me happy like I thought it was going to. It did for about 30 days.
Yeah.
I got to post about it on Facebook that I had it. And I thought, you know what? It just doesn't make, at this point in my career, it did not make sense to have that much money tied up into something that could get me from point A to point B, because I became the Duke of Northport by driving a $4,500 Nissan Versa, you know. So I didn't need the car. And I knew that my skills were good enough that no matter what I drove, I was going to keep having success. So yeah, I mean, there may come a point in your business journey, just talking to the listeners and the viewers here, where you have to go backwards a little bit before you can rebuild it and go forward. And living below your means allows you to be able to do that a whole lot easier than the folks that are trying to just keep up with the Joneses. So be careful about, I mean, it's real scary how easy it is to go down and get $1,000 per month car or truck payment at the dealership. They'll give them to you without a whole bunch of questions asked, right? But that
Yeah.
thing's going to be stuck with you for a while, man. So just be careful before you jump into those kind of situations as you're building this business.
So what is the best business advice that you've ever received, Phil? What's the best business advice that you've ever received?
I mean, the best business advice I've ever received, the best tip I would give somebody would be to take some time to figure out exactly what you want. I mean, what do you want your life to look like? What do you want your business to look like? What do you want to spend your time doing? And then find somebody who's done that or is currently doing that and figure out how to learn from them. Buy their course, go to their mastermind, hire them as a coach. It took me a long time to realize, in real estate, we look up to people that produce a lot and sell a lot. But I didn't want my life to look like those people because I didn't feel like those people had much freedom. I'd been that before. I saw what it looked like at this level. I couldn't imagine like doubling it and tripling it the way some of these people are doing now in real estate. But for me, it was about getting clarity on what I wanted life to look like and what I didn't want life to look like, which is usually where most people start. What do you not want things to look like? And then who is out there that you could learn from to help you get there? That's really that's been the ultimate cheat code every step of the way, Daniel, is I've been able to find coaches and mentors who were doing exactly what I wanted to do. And I was able to just get in the room with them, get on the phone with them, buy their course, hire them as a coach, go to their event, and just try to learn as much from them as I possibly could, and still doing that today, still doing that today. So,
You know what I realized is that as when I started, I was fortunate because when I made the decision to take care of my wife and leave the automotive industry, I had 100 employees. I was making business decision. I ran a multi-million-dollar dealership. My thing was I didn't realize how much business I knew. Does that make sense? So when I
yeah,
started going, it's like people are like, "How you doing? How you making 100,000 your first year speaking?" I'm like, I don't know. Like I'm thinking everybody's doing it. And the reason I bring that up because I had more of a business mindset than I realized I did. But what I see when I do a lot of these coaching sessions with some clients that are coming into entrepreneurship, into business, they just left their first 9 to 5 job, or they're right. They just left that 9 to 5, that corporate job, and have never really been involved in business. So they're still thinking like an employee.
yeah,
Talk to that person for a moment, because I think that those are the ones that struggle the most. And that's why 90% of businesses go out of business within the first year. And then whatever remains within 5 years, they're gone because they don't take it seriously to realize you think this way. You think like they train you to think like a corporate employee. They train you to think like a factory worker. But to succeed in business, you got to really develop that business savvy. Talk to that person for a moment. Give us your perspective on that, if you don't mind.
yeah. That's a great point. I've been coaching and training people who got in the real estate industry for the last several years, about 6 years now. And I've never had a real estate agent come to me and say, you know what, Phil, I closed 8 houses last month. I made $50,000. I just don't know if I can live this kind of lifestyle. I think I'm going to go back to my 9 to 5. Right? It's, hey, I don't have any deals pending right now. I don't know how I'm going to pay my MLS dues. I'm having to buy groceries on a credit card. So I think I'm going to go back to my 9 to 5. So I would just say, as an entrepreneur, the number one skill that you have got to learn to develop above everything else, if you can figure this one thing out, you'll be able to figure out the rest of it as you go. If you can figure out how to get clients and make money, everything else will sort itself out. Right? If you know how to get on the phone, get on email, get on social media, get on YouTube, whatever you're doing to create leads and turn those leads into appointments and turn those appointments into customers and turn those customers into closed sales. If you can just master those 4 things, then everything else that you do as an entrepreneur is going to be easy. So I already knew how to generate leads, set appointments, sign up customers, and close deals as a real estate agent. So when I started recruiting real estate agents, guess what I started doing? I started generating leads, setting appointments, signing them up, and closing deals with them. It's the same process. When I went to open up my second office and my third office and my 10th office, it was the same process over and over and over. So I see so many entrepreneurs, they spend so much time on their blog. They spend so much time designing in their website, their Canva template, and they'll spend hours and hours and hours on things that aren't going to make you any money. And one of the first questions I ask is, hey, that's great. That's a beautiful Canva template you got there. But what did you do today to go find a new customer? Never leave the office today without an appointment set for tomorrow. So if you can just stick to the basics, and listen, I know it's difficult. Everybody's got pretty social media posts and memes and websites that are gorgeous and all that stuff. There is a little bit that comes with that. But I would say make the money first and then hire somebody to build the website for you. Hire somebody to do the Canva template. But if you can just get good at generating leads, turning those leads into appointments, turning those appointments into signed contracts, and turning those signed contracts into sales, then everything else is going to be easy as you go through this whole journey. It's the same problem, and it's the same solution for every single business out there. And yet we forget the basics, right?
Yeah. So talking about that, that's a great segue. because you have this book coming out called Unstuck. And so is Unstuck going to be for real estate agents, or is it going to be for just a business owner in general?
Unstuck is really for the person who is a solopreneur. So they call themselves an entrepreneur, but they really don't have a business like we talked about earlier. So it's the same concepts and the same process for any industry out there. I think a lot of real estate agents will probably like the book, but I've also been working here lately with HVAC companies, pest control companies. I met with a group of dentists a few weeks ago that their whole thing was, how do I get out of the chair? How do I make money running my dental office without me having to physically be in the chair working on people's teeth? So I think the same process and the same strategies will apply to any business out there. So no, it's not just real estate agents. Obviously, I can talk real estate a little bit easier because that's what I've spent, the bulk of my career doing. But I think the same process applies, and that's really why I wanted to write this book, was that it wasn't just a real estate book. It's not just another sales book. I'm not really a sales coach. I mean, I can teach you how to sell, but if I teach you how to sell, but I can't teach you how to get out of sales, then you're just going to be stuck again.
Well, there's
So
something in your book that you talk about that I love, and we're honored to be your publisher, by the way, Phil, here at DG Publishing. It's been great working with you. You're a great guy, but he's a smart gentleman. I mean, ladies and gentlemen, he's a smart business owner. Like, he's successful, and he's the true meaning of humility and just the way he carries himself. But what I like what Phil talks about in his book, he says this: Phil, are you a cow or are you a bison? I was talking about this the other day. I was like, hey man, are you a cow or you're a bison? And it's, but he gives a great analogy in business when the book's going to be out here this summer. You definitely want to go get your copy. Unstuck, go be looking for it. But talk to us as we're coming to the end of this amazing show with you, Phil. Why does somebody want to be a bison and not a cow?
yeah. So yeah, when a storm's coming, cows lay down, right? They lay down, they let the storm come over them, and when the storm is over, they get up and they go back to what cows do, eating stuff and pooping everywhere and drinking water out of the pond, whatever cows do. But when bisons see a storm coming, they actually run into the storm, so that they're running through the storm, basically. So, both ways are kind of tough. Both ways are kind of scary, right? Like, if you've ever been outside during a big thunderstorm, like, it's pretty scary. Like, we had a big one last night here in Alabama. And it's going to be scary either way. But like I mentioned before, when I have clarity about which way I want to go, and when I have a model that I can follow to get me there, man, I want to be the bison. I want to run into that storm. It's going to be scary either way, but I would rather run into it 100%, rip that Band-Aid off, and come out the other side a little bit faster than the cow that's just going to sit there and wait for the storm to go over them.
I love it. Boom, baby. The last question, Phil Duke, what is a scripture or a quote you rely on in times of adversity? What is a scripture or a quote you rely on in times of adversity, my brother?
Oh man, yeah, that's good. I think of Joseph in the book of Genesis. My favorite Bible character, by the way, named my first son Joseph after the Joseph in the Old Testament. Even though Joseph in the New Testament, the earthly father of Jesus is important as well. But I remember when Joseph finally gets to talk to his brothers in Egypt after they sold him into slavery, and he ends up in prison for several years, and now he's second in command. He tells them, what you meant for evil, God meant for good. And that's always been a life scripture that stuck with me. People are going to try to hurt you. People are going to try to take you down. But if you keep clinging to God, you keep having that relationship with him, and you build your business and your life around biblical principles, what they meant for evil, God is going to use it for good.
Boom, baby. That's powerful right there. Think about that, ladies and gentlemen. Release the resentment, release the unforgiveness. What people mean for bad, God's going to use it for good. That's an awesome way to close. Man, somebody wants to work with this handsome guy right here, Phil Duke, how do they get a hold of you, man?
Yeah, man. So they can go. Easiest way is probably just check me out on Facebook, Instagram. I'm on Facebook a lot more. Just check me out on Facebook. I'm easy to find. You can also go to Phil Duke Jr. PhilDukeJr.com, and you can contact me through there. And you can find me a variety of ways. Call, text, email. My number's all over the place because I was in real estate for so long. I wanted my number and my contact info to be out there. So just feel free to reach out. We can hop on a quick Zoom call, see what we can do to help, see how I can help you with your business, and maybe go even further than that.
Well, they want to connect with the Duke of Norfolk is what they want to do.
That's right.
Hey,
Yeah.
Bill, thank you so much for joining us today. Ladies and gentlemen, what a powerful episode today. I'm telling you, I'm going to go back and study this one myself because there's so much truth came out here, so much business wisdom, and what we listen to and repetitively, it stays in our minds. So go back, study your notes, and do this. And remember, if you're stuck in life, if you're stuck in business, go to Audible, go to Amazon, get a copy of our book, The Makings of a Millionaire Mind.com. It's going to help you. We've sold thousands of copies. We've helped thousands of people already. And don't forget, May 24th, 25th here in San Antonio, The Makings of a Millionaire Mind Boot Camp. We got some amazing talent coming in, not just myself speaking and teaching on this concept, but also we got Roy Schnarr, multimillionaire, very successful in insurance. You definitely want to be here. We got Dr. Fred coming in from California, and we're just going to pour into you. So remember this, stop trying to live life alone. Until next week, we'll see you here with another amazing guest on the Daniel Gomez Inspires Show. See you next week, everybody. This is Daniel Gomez Inspires, and thank you for listening to our show today. Please share this episode with a friend, leave us a review, and subscribe to our show. And for listening to our show today, I want to give you a free gift. I want to invite you to our Millionaire Mind community. Text the word millionaire, that's millionaire, to 210-942-5059. Yes, join our community today and receive millionaire affirmations, inspirational quotes on a weekly basis. That's 210-942-5059. Text the word millionaire today and join our community. And once again, thank you for listening to our show.